Monday of the 20th week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. A young man approached Jesus and said, "Teacher, what must I do to gain eternal life?" He answered him, "Why do you ask me about the good? There's only one who is good. If you wish to enter life, keep the commandments." He asked him, "Which ones?" Jesus replied, "You shall not kill. You shall not commit adultery. You shall not steal. You shall not bear false witness. Honor your father and mother. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself." The young man said to him, "All of these I have observed. What do I still lack?" Jesus said to him, "If you wish to be perfect, go, sell what you have and give to the poor, and you will then have treasures in heaven. Then come follow me." When the young man heard this statement, he went away sad, for he had many possessions. The Gospel of the Lord.
Monday of the 20th week in Ordinary Time. The first reading comes from Ezekiel 24, 15 to 23. We've already seen that Ezekiel performs prophetic actions. Well, in today's first reading, we hear about a prophetic action that he does when his wife dies. Normally, there are prescribed modes of mourning of a loved one in Israel. One would tear one's garment, throw dust on one's head, walk around unshaved, unwashed, eat only bread and water for a certain number of days. These are things that would be expected. And Ezekiel seems to have greatly loved his wife. And yet, when she dies, he doesn't show any sign of mourning. That prophetic action causes an inquiry among the people. And Ezekiel's response, "This is the way you should react when Jerusalem is taken. You shouldn't mourn." Now why? Because this is simply a punishment for Jerusalem's sins. They have turned away from the Lord. They worship pagan gods. They practice social injustice. Therefore, they deserve the punishment that they're receiving. And to mourn over that punishment would imply that God was being unfair, unjust. And that's just not true. And so Ezekiel is giving the message to his people that they should accept what God is sending with a sense of equanimity, because this is what has to be. The Gospel is from Matthew 19, 16 to 22. A young man approaches Jesus and says, "Teacher, what good must I do to gain eternal life?" The first thing Jesus says is, "Why do you ask me about the good? There's only one who's good, God." And this is a typical rabbinic response, that God is the only good in the world. Therefore, we should not try to find other goods besides God. But more important, Jesus says, "Keep the commandments." And the man says, "I have since I'm young." Then Jesus calls him one step further. "Then sell everything you have and give it to the poor and follow me." The man's unable to do it because he's rich. He has allowed his treasures to become the God that he's worshiping. And that's a constant challenge to us. What things are the most important in our life? What things, if we were to lose, would cause us to lose faith in God? God has to be the center. God has to be the all. We heard that a couple weeks ago when we heard about the parable of the great pearl, the great treasure, that we have to be willing to sell everything, give everything away in order to serve God. And furthermore, notice there are different levels of the spiritual life. It doesn't mean that all people aren't called to the highest level, but we can only do what we can do at a particular point in our life. Maybe later on, we'll be able to do better. We'll be able to forgive people that we haven't forgiven for a long time. We'll be able to live a more simple lifestyle. Maybe we're just not there yet. It doesn't mean to be complacent. It doesn't mean to presume upon God's mercy. But it does mean that we are all on a journey, and that journey takes time. But when the Lord does call us to go to the next stage, we have to be generous in our response and give what we can. And may God bless us.